Well, blessed, happy New Year, everyone. Especially word of greeting to each of you at all of our campuses and to everybody joining us online as we start this new year. Are you ready for some good news? By God's grace, by His help, and a little bit of learning and effort on our part, I believe in 2026, all of our relationships can flourish in wonderful new ways. That's what's been on my mind as I think about this new year, and I've been praying about it since the fall, what this new series and our New Year's blessing, which will come this year on February 8th, will be all about. And I just kept getting a nudge from the Holy Spirit that wouldn't it be wonderful if we could, at our blessing service, lay a hand on a shoulder of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people and envision a year for relationships to become more wonderful and flourishing by God's grace and by God's design. So I've been thinking about that, and then I went out to a theological roundtable in Texas in October to present a paper, and beforehand, some of us, 8 or 10, gathered a day and a half in advance to sneak in a couple of rounds of golf. And on that Monday afternoon, hot October Texas afternoon, I'm at this golf course near Mineral Wells, Texas, and just out there on the practice range hitting a few balls before we go out to play. And I have no idea how this happened or why this happened, but while I'm just hitting the balls, I've got this song going through my head. You ever have this happen to you? It's like, where did that come from? But of all songs, it was, what's love got to do with it? What's love got... This song, this Tina Turner classic song that is just, I'm hitting balls. My rhythm of my swing was, what's love got to do with it? I played the whole round of golf, and I couldn't get this song out of my head. What's love got to do with it? I walk up to the putting green. What's love got to do with it? I'm just the whole time, and I told one of the preachers, I said, I can't get this song out of my head. And we laughed about it because it's a song that if you actually look at the lyrics, it stands in direct opposition to everything I stand for. But it stuck with me the whole round of golf. And the next morning, I'd forgotten it, got back out to the golf course, played the second round of golf, and bent over, put the tee in the ground, got ready to swing, and there it was again. What's love got to do with it? Stuck with me the whole rest of that round. I told one of the other ministers, I said, what is going on? He said, I don't know, maybe the Lord's speaking to you. And then another preacher said, hey, I preached a sermon by that title one time called What's Love Got to Do with It? I said, that is a good sermon title. What's love got to do? And I just kept on humming it all through the thing. We go at the end of the round, take the golf cart to the parking lot, unload our golf bags into my buddy's truck, and I said, I'll take the golf cart back up to the clubhouse. So I drove it back around over to the garage. There's a little garage area where they keep the golf carts, and some young guys in there cleaning off the carts and plugging them in, getting them ready for the next. And so I pull up, I get out, check, make sure I hadn't left anything, and there's just music just thumping, just streaming out from that garage that they're in there playing. And I turned around, and then all of a sudden it hit me. It was just all over me. It's like the song just streaming out loud from their garage. And what's love got to do? So there you have it. Welcome to your 2026 New Year's sermon series that I've entitled, What's Love Got to Do with It? It's all about relationships, about friendships, about marriages, about parenting, about co-worker relationships, about the relationships we might have even with those that we're having problems with. I just feel like the Lord is really going to bless our relationships as we think about it. And I land on this title, What's Love Got to Do with It? Not just because the song got stuck in my head, but because it's kind of the exact opposite of the song. And you know how we ask a question at the beginning of every sermon, are you ready for good news? Well, now there's going to be a second question throughout this whole series. I want you to get used to it. What's love got to do with it? And the answer is everything. So just say it with me. What's love got to do with it? Say it. Everything. It's got everything to do with relationships. And that's what we're going to see today in Colossians 3, is that love is this astounding God-given virtue that is like the total glue of all relationships. And we're going to discover in this very practical text today how putting on the graces and virtues that Paul describes here is sort of like wearing clothing. It's like a reflection of an internal reality. Well, let's start with this. When you think about what you're going to do with your new year, and I always make fun of New Year's resolutions because they're so short-lived, but it is a good idea to think about your priorities. It's a good time at the beginning of a new year to think about what's most important and to set some goals with regard to what's most important. That just is good planning. That makes good sense. You wouldn't want to spend your life pursuing that which is not important. And when we think about what's most important, well, it's not stuff. I heard a comedian recently doing a spot on a cycle of stuff. He said in your 20s, you don't have much stuff. You'd like to have some stuff. And then in your 30s, you get a little bit of stuff. And in your 40s, you start getting some stuff, but it's not good stuff. And then in your 50s, you get some good stuff. And then in your 60s, you start thinking about how to get rid of your stuff. And in your 70s, you're trying to remember where you put your stuff. In your 80s, you just don't want to pick up any of your stuff. And in your 90s, well, I guess you figure out stuff doesn't really matter that much. It's not stuff, it's not status, it's not accomplishment. I think we know the answer to this. What's most important in this world, the most important thing in all the world, people. People are what is priceless. Every single human being is made in the image of God, infinitely valuable to God. Every single human being worth the price of the death of the Son of God. Every single person is made for eternity. And so if you start out your year and you go, well, people are the most important thing, they're the treasure. And you think, well, I'm a treasure collector. I'm a treasure hunter. How do you connect to the treasure? If the treasure is people, and you connect to the treasure through what we call relationship. And if you connect through relationship, then doesn't it make sense that we would want to be really good at relationships? People are what's most important, so learning to relate to people, to be attached and connected in a healthy way is what's most important as far as the skill of our lives. And if that's the case, then we should really want to get good at relating to people. And this is what I think Paul's describing in Colossians 3. He's saying, here's who you are, and here's how you're going to relate to each other in the kingdom. Verse 12, put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another. And if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord's forgiven you, so you also must forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. I love the Message paraphrase here, the way Gene Peterson put this at verse 12. So, chosen by God for this new life of love, dress in the wardrobe God picked out for you. Compassion, kindness, humility, quiet strength, discipline. And then at verse 14, I love this. And regardless of what else you put on, wear love. It's your basic all-purpose garment. Never be without it. What's love got to do with it? Everything. So, for something so important as relationships, I'm just suggesting we start out this new year and think, okay, this is really important. Let's be prayerful about this. Let's bless one another's lives in this direction. And let's believe together that by God's grace, we can really get better at this. You know, you'd think that as important as relationships are, that this would be the thing that we would spend most of our time wanting to get good at this, and yet I don't know that we do, and we can all botch it so much. It's just some things I feel like we should learn it quicker. Like, I've been married for 40 years, and there are just some things I'm just now learning. For years, we had a great Christmas this year. I hope you did. For years, I sort of botched it as far as Christmas present buying for my wife. Her love language is gifts, and she loves to give gifts, and she likes to receive gifts. And she literally will start buying next year's Christmas gifts the 2 days after Christmas. She thinks about Christmas presents. She thinks about gift giving all the time. So all throughout the year, I mean, if it's March, she'll say, I think so-and-so might like this, or I might put it over here and get it for them for Christmas. I'm like, you're thinking about Christmas already. So she would think about me, and she would think about gifts she wanted to get me all throughout the year. For most of her married life, I would be like, December, I start thinking about it. Mid-December, I go out and I'm like getting the stuff. And then it was, she knew it. She knew it. That's the problem. She figured it out. And as she said, the problem with you go out in mid-December and everything, here's her phrase, has been picked over. That's has been picked over. And she didn't want the picked over things. And so, and listen, I love my wife with all my heart. I just wasn't, this part of it, I wasn't doing a very good job. I mean, I remember even when our little girl Abby was small, and she kind of had this sense, it's like that connection she had with her mom. And they were sensing the same things. And she'd come up to me in the middle of December and she'd say, Dad, have you got Mom a good Christmas? And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm working on it. And she said, what have you got? And she keep pressing me. And I'm like, I don't have to report to my 10-year-old daughter what I've got my wife for Christmas. But then I had to. She'd make me. And I had to lay it all out there on the bed. Here's what I got. And she'd look at it and she'd go, is that all? And I'm like, babe, I said, yeah, this looks good. She said, no, you need to get more. I mean, this is the way it was. But this year I did better. We can get better at this. Yeah, the thing is, like, before I tell you how I actually improved this year, I was just thinking about God made human beings so that we can get better at things. Isn't that great? I mean, and it's odd. I mean, some of the things, I don't know why I got to thinking about this, the odd things that people get good at. I guess wandered off and wasted some good sermon prep time looking at the Guinness World Book of Records. I don't know why I wanted to check on it, but I knew that there were people that worked hard at the skill of eating hot dogs. And there is a national hot dog eating contest at Nathan's Hot Dogs at their flagship store at Coney Island every year. And do you know what the all-time record is for most hot dogs eaten at one sitting? It's by Joey Chestnut, and total hot dogs eating 76. That's painful. That's painful to think of. But somebody has spent a lot of time, people spend a lot of time getting good at eating hot dogs. I don't know, I wandered off and I was thinking about it. I have a minister friend who last year decided he wanted to learn to walk on his hands. That's a pretty amazing feat. I've never been able to walk on my hands, and I don't have a desire to learn to walk on my hands, but he did, and he showed us he could walk kind of halfway across the room on his hands. Pretty good. And I got thinking, is there a record for the longest distance walked on hands? Yes, there is. Johann Herlinger of Austria, in 55 daily 10-hour stints, walked from Vienna to Paris, 870 miles on his hands. Yes, there's a record for the fastest time to descend 75 stairs on the hands. A 29-year-old from Nepal did it in 25 seconds. And also he holds, by the way, the record for the fastest 50 meters walking on hands with a football between the legs. 25 seconds. I didn't even know that was a skill, walking on your hands with a football between your legs. But I'm just saying, we can get good at odd things, and we like to get good at things. We like to get good at golf and quilting and cooking and crossword puzzles. We like getting good at things. And I'm just wanted to say, let's start out 2026 and let's go, God made us so we can get better at things. Let's get better at relationships. And I think this is what Colossians is talking about, is that there is a way that the inward reality of who you are in Christ can be increasingly manifest in your outward behaviors that will ultimately form the framework for beautiful relationships. And it's something that we do by the grace of God, but we also have some choice in the matter. That's the beautiful thing about Paul's writing. So he'll talk in the most beautiful and grand ways about what the gospel has done to save us, redeem us, and put us in fellowship with God. And then he'll say, and therefore, this is then how we live. And this is what he's saying here in Colossians. This is then how we live. Some wit, I think it was Zig Ziglar, who years ago I heard him say, most of our marriages would be great if we could just learn to treat each other with half the respect that we do a stranger on the telephone. I mean, he was talking about back in the day when we actually used to answer the phone, and the couple would be like having a fight with each other, and then the phone would ring, and all of a sudden you're like, rah, 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 and then hello, oh yeah, so good to hear from you. You know, just we do have some say in the way in which we are going to express our behaviors to reflect the nature of who we actually are. And so this year, I just thought, this is important to my wife. And I've just been getting better in recent years at my gift giving at Christmas. And so this year, back in March or something, we looked at this store, this estate jewelry store we like to go into up in the mountains. And there was this beautiful pair of earrings, and it was expensive. And Ann and I both were like, that's a little too much for right now. And then she said to me later, she said, what I would love is, she said, actually, I would love if you just wanted to just build up towards giving something like that to me. You just give me a picture of it and then later give it to me. And, it just, I said, it sounds like a layaway plan. She said, yeah, it's like that. And so I decided to do it. I bought them. And then I took a picture of them. And at her birthday in April, I gave her a picture of them. And I said, they're not yours yet. I said, but be patient, they'll come. And she loved it. She was like, I'm going to get these one day. And then Mother's Day rolled around, and I showed her a picture again. I said, you're going to get these one day. I gave her some other stuff too. But I said, this is going to. And my plan was, give them to her at Christmas. So this Christmas got to be mid-December, and I've been doing much better this year. I've been buying her some stuff all throughout the year. But I was just kind of thinking about, her big present for the year. We were looking in a jewelry store, and afterwards we looked at some pretty earrings, and I said, well, such and such were pretty. And she said, yeah. She said, but there were those earrings you gave me the picture of, and y'all, I'd forgotten about them. I had tucked them away in some closet somewhere. All of a sudden, a panic came over me. I was like, where even are those things? This is why I don't buy things ahead of time. I'll just forget I even got them. And so, but we got done. I scrambled around, found them back in the back of a closet somewhere, and said, oh yeah, it's time to give them to her. And so when she opened those up on Christmas, that had been building up toward it, because for her, the gift, part of it was, you've been thinking about me. And I've been on several trips this year, and I bought some presents while I was on the trips. And as she's opening up, she's like, you were thinking of me in the summer. You were thinking of me here. That's what it meant, My love for her has always been absolute. It's not like I all of a sudden I started loving her more this year. It was I've gained a little skill in one area of relating with my wife, because this is her love language. This is what I want to bless your life this year, is that who you are in Christ would be increasingly reflected in the way that you are manifesting your identity through your behaviors in your relationship. People are the treasure. You're the treasure hunter, so to connect to the treasure, you're in relationship, and therefore gaining skill in relationship is a worthy pursuit. And what Paul says is it's like putting on clothing. If you see a woman dressed in a white dress, a long robe and a train and a veil over her, you go, that's probably a bride. Now, the white dress doesn't make her a bride, but it is often typified that a woman who's getting married is wearing a white dress. Well, this is what Paul's saying about this. He's saying it's like, this is who you are, and so this is what you should wear. That's what he's essentially saying. This is who you are, chosen, holy, and beloved. Chosen, holy, and beloved. Chosen, the word here means elect. It's not this wooden idea of predestination that some people have. It's not fatalism. It's not like God just is going around just picking out some people to damn and some people to say. That's not the notion of what it means to be chosen. Instead, this is grace traced to its earliest source. This is grace at its most radical. This is to say, how could you ever know for sure that the love of God is absolutely unconditional for you unless you traced it all the way back and said, He's like a father who wanted to adopt a child, and He came and He went all the distance and He adopted me because He wanted me. You're chosen. You're adopted by God. You're wanted by God. And your salvation didn't have anything to do with your merits, but it had all to do with God's deep longing to have you. Chosen and holy. I almost feel like we just need a completely different English word. Because when you say holy in our language, it means religious. That is not what the word holy means in the Bible. It means literally set apart. It means belonging to, right? So if there's anything that you particularly treasure, right? If you have something that's set apart and it's like it's different from everything else, if you've got a nice set of china that you bring out for special occasions and you want to make sure you don't break it because it's more valuable or sentimental to you, that's the idea of holiness. It's something that's set apart. It's not mundane. It's not ordinary. It is consecrated. It is set apart to God. You're chosen and you belong to God. You're set apart. You're not ordinary. You're not ordinary at all. And you are beloved. This is your identity. We, a few weeks ago, realized the identity of a Christian is I am a child of God. And to be a child of God is to be chosen, holy, and beloved. And what Paul's saying is if you're chosen and you're holy and you're beloved, that's your identity, then this is the kind of clothing that will reflect who you are. The clothes that you wear say something about how you see yourself, right? My wife, she wears sparkly things. She does. And it's because she's sparkly on the inside. And I was thinking about a beautiful lady in our church, an elder in our church, Karen Denai, always has on bright colors. Well, she's a joyful person. So her outward, she's always going to be that way. Butch Moser, who is my right-hand man on Sunday mornings, he dresses so casual all the time. I don't care what it is. It's why? Because he's comfortable in his own skin. He's comfortable on the inside. He's going to be comfortable on the outside. Chris Lawson, he wears what he wears because nobody actually knows. But anyway, the point being that the clothing you wear is saying something about how you see yourself. So this is why I say over and over, think much of your identity in Christ, because you'll then think about the clothing you wear matching that. I'm chosen, I'm holy, I'm beloved. You wake up in the morning, I'm a child of God. It means I'm chosen, I'm holy, and I'm beloved. Well, what does that look like? What does that look like what we're wearing? It means that there's going to be a reflection in your outward behavior. And if you aspire to these attributes that Paul is talking about, even though you haven't matured in these things on the inside, that doesn't make you a hypocrite. It just makes you aspiring towards something great. When I was a kid, I'd put on a Superman costume because I wished I could fly and save people. I couldn't be Superman, but it wasn't wrong that I was aspiring to help people. I think often of how sometimes in some mystical way, what you begin to wear does end up also shaping how you're feeling. Ann and I talk about that often. Like sometimes you have to act your way into a new feeling rather than waiting to feel your way into a new kind of way of acting. When I was a kid and I got a new pair of tennis shoes, especially back in the day when I got my PF Flyers. Anybody remember PF Flyers? When I put those PF Flyers on my feet as an 8-year-old, I truly thought I could run faster and jump higher. And you know what? There's a chance that I actually did. Because I thought that I could, I probably did. I was reading in a great book this week. I happened to come upon a study in 2007 from Harvard researchers were studying housekeepers in hotels. And they were trying well, they weren't, I'm not sure what the point of the study was, but they took half of that, all these maids, all these housekeepers, when asked, they seldom responded that they felt like that they got a lot of exercise. In fact, over 2/3 of them said they didn't get any exercise at all in their lives. They were thinking they don't go to the gym, they don't walk on treadmills, they don't run, they don't go lifting weights and stuff like that and go to exercise classes. Over 2/3 of them. But then the researchers took half of the participants in this, took half these housekeepers, and they sat and explained to them that all of their daily duties, all the vacuuming, all of the scrubbing, all of the movement, all the carrying things, all the walking around the hotel, and they added up their steps and they showed them and said, you're actually doing exercise, and it puts you into a category of those that have sufficient exercise in your life. You're doing the stuff it takes to be fit. And they told one half of them. The other half, they didn't tell anything. And they came back 4 weeks later just to see if that made any difference. And the housekeepers who had been told that, hey, you're actually exercising, you're actually doing the stuff to be physically fit, they had on the whole lost 1.8 pounds. And the thing was, nobody reported that they were trying to. No, it wasn't like they didn't go join gyms, they didn't go on a diet or anything like that. And the people who had not been given the information about, hey, your job actually makes you fit, there was no change in their weight loss or gain. And the researchers were kind of baffled by this because they couldn't actually figure it out. And they still don't really know. It could just be that those that thought, hey, I'm doing exercise, they started vacuuming more vigorously, started taking the stairs rather than the elevator. I don't know. But the point is, like, sometimes when you just look at this list of what Paul is talking about and saying, here are the behaviors that are going to make your relationships flourish, just by beginning to put it in practice, that also will impact you. It's a beautiful way God's designed us. The way you think about it. A 2012 study, participants were given a set of challenging tasks, analytical tasks, things you had to concentrate on. And some of them were given a white coat to wear and were told this is a doctor's coat. And some of them were given a white coat to wear and said it's a painter's coat, and some didn't wear a coat at all. And they found that those that thought they were wearing a doctor's coat performed significantly better on these concentration tasks than those that either had a painter's coat on or no coat at all. Clothing is the outward expression of an inward reality. But if you don't feel kindness in your heart, and yet you start treating people with kindness, there's something that begins to happen, I think almost mystically, spiritually, wherein because your outward behavior is showing kindness, you can begin to see yourself as a kind person. Get up every day, remind yourself, I'm a child of God, which means I'm chosen, I'm holy, and I'm beloved. And then think about this, your new wardrobe. Just think of what Paul's describing here, putting on, like, these are the new clothes that God's given to you. And he starts with this, compassionate hearts. It's 2 words in the Greek language, and it means actually to feel in your intestines. That's what this means. It means to have deep feeling towards what others are going through. This is not a word that shows up in any of the Bible translations, but I think in the way that we use the word in modern English usage, maybe the right word here is empathy. Empathy. It means to feel with. Brene Brown, Houston researcher, has done a lot of teaching about empathy, and one of her useful illustrations is seeing someone who's fallen down in a deep hole. And she says sympathy is different than empathy. Sympathy is like it stands up at the top of the hole and looks down and go, I'm really so sorry you're down in that hole. I'm sorry you're down in there. You want a sandwich? But empathy is like it gets a ladder and finds a way to climb into the hole and to be with the person and say, hey, I've been in a situation like this myself before, and I'm here with you, and you're not alone. In other words, empathy doesn't stand above the pain. It enters into it with others. It requires, Brene Brown says, recognizing another's perspective, see it through their eyes, and not judging, but connecting with this kind of deep gut feeling for another. That's what Paul's describing here. You want to see one of the greatest keys to healthy relationships that could change everything in a relationship is you put on empathy. And then he mentions kindness. It can mean goodness, generosity. Interestingly, there's a powerful verse in Romans 2:4 that says God's kindness, the same word, is what leads to repentance. That in God's design for human relationships, there's something about treating someone with a generous sense of benevolence towards them and a grace that they may not even deserve that lends itself towards promoting their transformation. We're talking about relationships and how do they flourish? Here's your new wardrobe: empathy, kindness, and humility. The Greek words here mean like low or close to the ground. It's a mindset. It's a very radical idea because in the Greco-Roman world, humility was not a virtue. This is not putting yourself down. This is not thinking poorly of yourself. It's paraphrasing C.S. Lewis. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Humility is actually this beautiful place of maturity where we don't have to be self-absorbed anymore. And when that happens, relationships really prosper. Because when there's real humility, you don't have to interrupt someone. You can really listen to them. You can really value them. You can be fully with them rather than thinking about the next clever thing that you're going to say. It's one of the ways that you can learn to admit your own wrongs quickly. There's a lot of research that shows humility actually builds trust. It doesn't diminish your influence as they thought in the ancient Greco-Roman world. Instead, it magnifies your influence. And then this word meekness. This of all the list of words here, this is the one that we most need another word for. It's much more rich and strong than our English word meekness or gentleness can convey, because it does not mean weak or timid or passive. This is the word in classical Greek that was often used to describe a strong animal that had been tamed, like a strong horse, like a really strong horse, trained and responsive. So meekness actually means strength under control, power restrained for the good of another. It's not just being nice. Niceness is the thing that makes us avoid conflict. That's not what meekness is. And when Jesus says, I'm gentle and lowly, that word for gentle, it has the same root as this word for meekness. It's talking about a whole nature of a softer way of being and yet being strong at the same time. And then this word patience, which is from two Greek words, makros, which you know from macro means long, and thumos, which means anger or agitation. So it means, it's a word that you might say long suffering, but what it means is a long time before you get angry. Not quick to get overly emotionally reactive with someone. This is about emotional regulation, the ability to endure irritation without overreacting. Patience, the skill of staying relationally present even when frustration might be justified. It doesn't mean that everything rolls off your back like a water off a duck's back. It doesn't mean that things don't ever bother you. It doesn't mean that you never get angry. Angry is something that is not in and of itself a sin. But it means that you're not quick to be angry, you're slow. You're not easily irritated. Empathy, kindness, humility, meekness, patience. This is your new wardrobe. Now, would you just notice, what do these things have in common? Well, the first thing I notice of what they all have in common is they're all about me. They're all about my clothing. They're not about how you're trying to get others to act towards you. One of the things we'll see over and over in relationship building is that probably the number one problem in relationships is that each is thinking the answer is to try to fix the other one. And none of these things are about that. Grandbaby Mia, she got for Christmas something that she'd wanted. It's a little robotic puppy, and it's cute, but it's different. It has a hurt paw. And so it's got this one paw. It's like this. And so it walks along on three little legs and just whimpers pitifully. Oh, 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 like this with his hurt paw. And then if you take this little plastic cast and you put it onto the paw, then after a period of time, it plays a little song, and you pull the cast off, and then the leg straightens out, and now the dog's happy again, and it's healthy again. And this is what she wanted. She opened it up, and she said, "My wish came true." And I was the one who had to figure out how to make the thing work, and so we did, and she fixed the paw, and she's holding the little puppy, and it's all healthy now. And she looks up to me, and she said, sheepishly, she said, "Dava," I said, "What?" She said, I wanted to get a boo-boo again. And so I read how you do it. I said, "You want this dog to get hurt again?" She said, "Yeah," because she wanted to fix it again. I said, "All right, here's what you do. You go put it about a foot in front of the wall, and you just let it just walk straight into the wall, and then it hurts itself again." And so it did. And she got it. The thing was hurt. And she's so cute. She was just loving on it, patting it, caring for it. And then finally she took her little 3-year-old hands, and she came up and looked right in that puppy's face and cupped that little puppy face right in her hands and looked deeply into that puppy's eyes. And she was overheard to say, "Puppy, I love you. That's why I want to fix you." I love you, so I want to fix you. There's something about love. We do want to fix other people, but please note, the clothing that we are wearing that is the mark of who we are as God's chosen, holy, and beloved. None of these virtues are about fixing other people, are they? And related to that is that these virtues about flourishing relationships, none of them are about us getting the upper hand. None of them are about like, I'm coming out on top. Instead, if you want to become excellent at relationships, everything shifts where you start taking in what a man who came and did several special conferences at Rinaldi years ago, a man named Jack Frost, would say over and over, "Do you want to be right, or do you want to be in relationship?" These are the things, Paul says, that make human relationships flourish. Several years ago, the Surgeon General issued a statement that kind of reminded people of when warning labels were first put on cigarette cartons. And the new warning was about social isolation, lack of relationships. Blame everything from air conditioning that keeps people from sitting on their porches to social media to iPhones to COVID, whatever you want to blame. But it's happened. We've become socially isolated, and we've lost skill at relationships. So this year, I want to bless relationships. I want to speak blessing over all of the relationships. To be a Christian is to be a child of God, which is to be chosen, to be holy, to be beloved. And if you are, then what that means is the very love of God has become your nature also. If you're just new to Christianity, or you're just exploring what the gospel is all about, God so loved that He sent His only begotten Son. It was love that moved the heart of God, who is a Father, to do what we couldn't do, and that is pay the price of the debt of our sin. And so He came in the person of Jesus. And Jesus said, "Greater love hath no one than this, that He laid down His life for His friends." And yet He came to lay His life down for those who opposed Him. The love of God is so deep, it is beyond our comprehension. But it's absolutely the most real thing in all of the world. So this is why Paul says, above all these things, above all these virtues, put on love, verse 14, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. What's love got to do with it? Everything. And that's the gospel.